Well, good morning. Welcome to Integrated Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith, and how are you all today? I want to talk about how horrible things can get. Yesterday, I put up a two-parter about bugging out, and I had some good questions, and I had the opportunity to talk with somebody last night about this very thing. Excuse me while we weed the weenies here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and maybe I'll explain it later. But most of you know what I'm talking about. Had the opportunity to talk to someone at length about the situation. And you hear the sirens, that's because we're in suburbia. But the thing about the sirens out here, it's either ambulance or fire, which goes back to my other point that of why in many cases, suburbia is preferable to small towns or the country, and not in every case. And I know it has to do. Different people have a different idea of quality of life. One of the things, though, is the immediacy of emergency services responses in the suburbs. It's great. And, when you hear a siren around here, it's not about oh my gosh, crime. It's about, well, somebody's having a problem and help is on the way. So anyway, back to this. One of the questions that I got from yesterday's was, and we were talking about the scenario. If you haven't watched that, and I recommend that you do go back and watch the two about bugging out. There's two of them, 1 and 2. First off, let me say, bugging out is your absolute last resort. Okay. But it is the resort you have to go to when the ultimate happens. So we're going to spin back around to that. Somebody asked, well, for those of us who aren't able to bug out, if we have to bug in, as it were, and I'm not sure, I mean, I'm not making fun of the use of that term. I wonder where that, you don't bug in, you hunker down. But what's your advice for those of us who can't? Okay, I'm going to get around to that, and I'm not sure that my answer is going to be very reassuring. And then the conversation that I had with someone last night after I made those, and they said, "Well, I thought you said that the people in the suburbs were, in many cases more prepared than people in the country, and why would they have to leave the suburbs?" Okay, if they're more prepared. Okay, great questions, and I want to address both of those because it's important. I don't think that most people think far enough down the road. Okay, I don't think that most people carry a situation to its logical conclusion, and that's what we're dealing with here. The scenario that I talked about in yesterday's was a collapse of the grid. Okay, and we've been talking about that because of the I won't use the word here, I'll earn myself a banner, a potential test or drill of a shutdown on the grid. Now, I'm very leery of an idea of a drill or a test, and if the grid goes down, things escalate very quickly as far as degrees of horrible. Okay, so let me first set out what would happen with the collapse of the grid, and we'll just use suburbia as an example. But it's going to be a little bit worse it's going to be a lot worse in the urban core, and then it's going to, but ultimately it won't be. Okay, so we'll try to get back to that. It's going to be a little bit less worse as you get farther away from the more densely populated areas, but that doesn't mean that the end result is going to be different. So let's talk about this. And if you're wondering, well, who is this guy who's talking about this stuff? I should probably tell you, for any new people joining us here, I am the author of the Stonemont series, The Reversion, the Revival, the Renewal, and Appeal to Heaven, the Blessings of Freedom, and the Hostages to Fortune. It's all about it's about a total collapse of the grid, in this case a CME, and takes us back to a pre-electricity day, and They've been selling all around the world since 2017. People learning a lot. If you'd like to get them and want to learn from them, they're available either through Amazon, the link's down below, in paperback or Kindle, or through our website, stonemont.us. You can get them from me there. That link will also be down below. You can get them from me. They're autographed if you would like. So that's who I am for people who ask. So it's not as if I just decided, well, this morning I woke up and what do I think about this? No, I've been thinking about this, since, for a very long time. And I put in detail in my books exactly how I think things would go in all areas, in the exurbs, which I maintain is the best place, in the rural areas, which is probably second best, in the suburbs, and in the city. So I talk about all those in great detail, more than I'll ever be able to get to in videos. Somebody said the other day, somebody left a comment referring to this. He says, "You just want to sell your books." That's right, Jack. I'm a writer. I wrote books. I want to sell. Did you know that's why writers write books? Not just because of little ego they sit around. They write them to sell. That's how we make our living. So, Jack, just because you don't have a book to sell. So that's right, I do. But the reason that I make most of my videos is to let people know that those books are out there if you really want an in-depth education on more things than you can imagine. Okay, so anyway, back to this. What the situation that we're addressing here is a complete collapse of the grid. Now, the idea that the grid is going to come back on, in a week or so, or a month, or whatever, that's wishful thinking. That's hopeful. We don't know exactly how they will use this. If it is a test, they might shut it down for a week, just to see how do people act. But I'm going on the assumption here that the grid is down. Either they've shut it down for population, for depopulation, okay. Or the grid has gone down because of an EMP attack or a CME attack. Now, or a CME event, not an attack. An attack by the sun. So let's start with the question. Well, I thought that you said suburban people were more prepared in many cases. Yes, but they're not prepared for the big one. You see, not all things for which we prepare are the big ones. We should prepare for the big one, but there are many little ones from start to the big one, right? There is economic collapse. There is financial collapse individually, There is a collapse of society in ways to where we're talking more about the cities imploding because of politics and finance and things like this. There are personal tragedies that happen. In most cases, I maintain that many people in maybe most, I don't know, in the suburbs are better prepared than other places, simply because they are prepared not just for the big one, but they are prepared for all of the smaller ones in between. Do you see what I mean? So when we talk about preparedness, we're not just talking about the big one. We're talking about everything from normal to it's all gone. So that's the spectrum. Now, I know many people in the suburbs, and like I say, I would say from my own personal knowledge, the percentage of preparedness-minded people in the suburbs is probably about the same as the percentage in the country. But because there's so many more, or rural areas, however you want to put it, but because there's so many more in the suburbs, there are just simply more people that are prepared. Now, these people are prepared to the extent until they get to the big one. And we're going to talk about why you can't stay in the suburbs after the grid collapse in just a second. But they are prepared to be able to withstand all those things in between. Okay, they must also be prepared, and this is what I was talking about in my bugging out. The very last option. Okay, bugging out is the very last choice, but it has to be the choice at the end, and you have to be able to see far enough down the road to understand what could be coming and to make your move quickly enough. Now let's talk about what will happen in the suburbs, and just make this 10 times worse in the urban core. In a grid down situation, okay, you can have a couple of days of confusion, a couple of days of the neighbors, living in the dark and becoming more and more anxious. And I mean that in the true sense of the word anxious. I don't mean eager, I mean anxiety, confusion, not knowing what's going on. The longer it goes, after several days, people are gonna, they haven't had running water, they haven't had, whether it's air conditioning or heat. Let's just talk, it doesn't matter what time of year it happens. They haven't been able to make their runs to the grocery store. If they did to the grocery store, either the grocery store is closed, or after a certain amount of time, when people start running out of food, they're going to start breaking into it and looting it, and pretty soon there's not, if you get the last pack of ramen noodles, you're going to be the lucky one, which keeps you alive until when? Thursday? So it's going to start to degrade, and it's going to start to degrade. The first couple of days, people are going to think, oh, this is kind of interesting, this is kind of neat, and it's going to go downhill quickly after that. Now, they say that the average person has, a week of food, and I always say, well, and that's after they've squeezed out all the ketchup packets that they found in the back of the junk drawer. Maybe, I don't know, do they have 3 days, do they have a week? It doesn't matter, because you have to go farther down the road and say at some point, eventually, they're going to run out of food. They're going to run out of food. Now, if you're all set up fine, if you're prepared and you've got your 3 years worth of food, or a year or whatever, I say 7 years, but if you have all your food at your house, people will say, well, we're in good shape, aren't we? Well, no, you're not, as long as you stay in the house. As long as you stay in your neighborhood, because everybody else around you is running out of food, and finally it will run out of food. And it's not going to take very long. I mean, let's give it the most optimistic, let's say within a month, between people scratching together and looting the grocery stores and the CVS and the convenience stores and all that. Finally, everybody's out of food. Okay, but you still have food. You got all your food. What are you going to do? It won't be that whole month before people will start to see, unless you hide in your house, and I'll discuss that in just a second, that you aren't suffering like everybody else. Now, I've heard all the things. I've heard you have to stop eating as much, and so that you start to look gaunt, so that you won't look fat and happy and healthy and all that. Yeah, right, what you're doing is you're postponing the inevitable, which is they're going to get to the point to where they are starving to death and you're not. Okay. And then they're going to want your food. Let's just put it there. They're going to want your food. Why? Because they don't want to starve to death. They don't want their children to starve to death. And what won't a parent do to keep their children from starving to death? Now, we see these things on TV about people in third world countries and their children are starving to death. Well, that's not the American psyche. Okay, Americans aren't just going to sit around for the most part and allow their children to starve to death. And Canadians, Australians, I don't know the mindset of most Europeans. So you guys clue me in on that, right? But you are going to get to that point, period. You will get to that point with a grid down. And then they're going to want your food. They're going to ask. Maybe after a week, they'll say, hey, do you have any spare such? And then you have a decision to make. You can say, yeah, I have something to share. I can share this, and then you share that, and then they come back the next day for something with 10 more people who have found that you have things to share. And it all comes down to this. Do you have enough food to feed everyone you know and everyone they know? Because the word's going to get out, and everyone they happen to run across. And the answer is no, you don't. Nobody does. See? So everybody's coming to you. You are going to exhaust your food very quickly. And then your children aren't going to have anything to eat, and they will be starving to death now along with everyone else. Simple as that. And if it gets to the point to where it finally comes and you tell all these people who have seen you as the source, as their food source, it gets to the point, I'm sorry, we don't have any food. Are they going to believe you? They're going to kill you. Probably, And they're going to storm your house. They're going to go search your house. They're going to tear your house apart and probably kill everybody in there. That's if you have waited until that point, because you haven't recognized the logical conclusion of the situation, and that is the logical conclusion if you take it far enough down the road. Okay? That's why you get out as soon as you can. You get out within the first couple of 3 days. Okay? This is what my new book series is about, and I'm really interested in this. I wrote almost a whole chapter yesterday because it's so interesting to delve deeply into the personalities of the different people who will be coming, who will be experiencing this in a neighborhood. I'm basing it on, people I know. So that is what's going to happen. Now, can you hide in your house? How are you going to hide in your house? I know I hear people say, I have pre-cut lumber fitted for my windows, and I'm going to put it up there, and I have sandbags to fortify the house, and we won't have any lights on. So you're going to stay inside your house. Now, we're not talking about a week. We're not talking about a month. We're talking about the grid is down. It's not coming back. Until it's not necessarily reinvented, but everything is reindustrialized, or until they turn it back on a year later, by the time we have a 90% die-off. So you're going to hide inside your house. Okay, have you made all the preparations you need to for sanitation, for the disposal of waste? For the preparation of food? Somebody said, well, I'll take it out in the backyard. Okay, so now you've left your house. Do you think there aren't eyes all over the place? Do you think that after a grid downs, people are all just hiding in their house? No, they're out. They're out looking around. They're out talking to people. They're out. Some are hiding. Sure, some are hiding. Others are not. There are eyes everywhere. People, you know how criminals get caught? Because somebody always sees. There's always somebody watching. Why? Because some people have nothing else to do but watch. Everybody's all concerned about the eye in the sky and surveillance and all. There has always been that. Those of you who live in small towns or grew up in small towns, tell me there was anybody in town that didn't know all your business. In this way, the suburbs are actually better because people kind of, they don't get into everybody's business. But there's always people watching. And you're going to hide in your house for 3 months. They'll tell you that it takes 3 weeks to die of starvation. That 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. That's a bunch of junk. That's just something that somebody made up as you look at the how long it takes people to starve in the real world. Okay? You look at the hunger strikers over in Ireland, led by Bobby Sands. Most of them lasted almost 2 months, eating nothing. And I hear people are going to be eating little bits here, and so it's going to be several months before, for the most part, people have gotten to the point of actually starving to death. All the time they're getting crazier, and you're going to hide in your house that long? No, you're not. No, you're not. And then what are you going to do? And then at the end, somebody's going to say, I haven't seen the Smiths come out I know that they're preppers. I heard them say something at a party one time. Whatever. And it's everybody that knows you is going to be talking about, what's the Smiths? Have you seen them? Their house is all boarded up. Okay, if your house is all boarded up, well, anyway, that's another video. And they're going to find out. And whether you're in there or not, they're going to start busting in your house. Whether they think you're there or not. Maybe they think you're gone. Well, I think that maybe we haven't checked the Smith's house. Let's go in there and bust it. They're going to have a sledgehammer. They're going to bust in that wood that you've put up over your windows. And they're going to go through your house. And then you're going to be in there, and now what are you going to do? Kill them? I mean, so now you're killing your neighbors that are just trying to live. And now, I mean, just to put it bluntly, now you have dead bodies to dispose of. I mean, add a little bit more onto the challenge, right? Now you got, I mean, how many do you have to kill? I don't know. 2, 10, 20, however many. Now you got these bodies to dispose of. And now everybody knows that you're in there. Now that's if they didn't kill you. Okay. And I'm assuming that if you're that tuned up, everybody in there's got a rifle and, ready to go, right? But that's not realistic. It's simply not realistic. But let's get back to this. So now you've killed some of your neighbors for breaking into your house looking for food. Now everybody knows you're in the house. Okay, well, that'll keep them away for a while. Yeah, maybe. It's not going to keep them from going out and emptying out their gasoline in their lawnmower and putting it in the bottle and throwing it against your house and burning you out. And now what are you going to do? You're going to take all those 2-liter pop bottles you filled up with water and go around and put out your house fire? No. Just imagine a bunch of starving people outside your house. Well, burn them out. They keep throwing bottles of gasoline, burning gasoline on your house. Adios, muchacho. Right? I mean, that's what it is. So here's the answer. People don't realize. They have no conception because first off, most people have never seen horrible things. Secondly, they don't project far enough down the road, and they don't have the experience to understand how one thing leads to another, to another, to another, to another. Most people go 1, 2, and then stop. Okay, a month and then stop. What do you think? Everything's going to be better? It's not. Not if you stay there. So this is why. In answer to what should you do to bug in, you can't. I'm sorry, there's just nothing there. Yeah, have all the food you can, have all the water that you can, have all the medications that you can, have defense if you can. But if you're going to bug in, you're either going to have to share your food, which is going to run you out and you're going to starve to death with everybody else, or you're going to have to kill people. How many people are you going to have to kill? How many people do you want to kill to stay alive? You see, that's the situation you get into if you try to defend a static position. I talked about this the other day, I forget which one. One of the first things that I trained my fighters or the people in my martial arts system was the insanity of trying to defend a static position without an adequate force. And I had them study Custer, I had them study Dien Bien Phu, Quezon, and the Alamo. That's what happens when you try to defend a static position. Now, Dien Bien Phu and Quezon, they were eventually, resupplied and all that, and then moved on, and then the war progressed, right? But they had resupply, and they had a whole bunch of fighters, and you don't. That's not what you have. And where's there is no resupply. You are your supply. So this is why, and I'm sorry that for bugging in, it can work short term until everyone around you is starving and wants your food, and they're going to do anything it takes to get it. And at that point, you telling them you don't have any isn't going to work. So, I know this is, it's horrible to think about, but it's a horrible situation. And people who really want to, and this is why I was talking about in yesterday's, that the person who has thought this out has to be the leader, because you're going to have so many people who have not thought it down the line. I mean, I have spent years thinking about everything, right? You may have. Many people out there in our community have thought about these things. Many people haven't. Many people that are all, look like they're tuned up have really not thought it past a certain point, because they think up to the point to where they become uncomfortable and don't know what to do. And that's common. What you have to do is you have to force yourself through that point of not knowing what to do, and now going, okay, what are the many things that could happen, and what do I do with these things? That's the key to real preparedness. Real preparedness is up here. It's not the beans and bullets and band-aids, although those things are important. And so, what advice do I have if you're going to stay put? I don't know. I mean, don't stay put. That's my advice. Have a place to go. This is why you want to have a place to go and go there, because you can't deal with what's. If you read my books, I talk about this in detail. I talk about, if you notice all the suburban neighborhoods, that are inside the suburbs, when they go to them, they're just full of dead people. Yeah, they're empty houses or dead people. Either the people there have gone someplace else to try to survive, or they've stayed in their houses and they're dead. They starved to death. Or they've committed suicide. There's going to be a lot of suicides in that case. A lot of murder-suicides. I talk about that in my book. In my books. So you have to force yourself. Anyway, you have to have a place to go, and you have to leave soon enough. The sooner you leave, and I don't mean as soon as it happens, but that's why I talked about yesterday. You wait for a couple of days. You kind of see what's going on. You give time for anybody who's coming to you to get there. But you need to leave in time to get out. You're not going to have these problems out in the country. You'll eventually have the problems. There are plenty of country people who aren't prepared. And the idea, well, they must be prepared because they have 40 acres. Well, they're not going to go out there and plant a bunch of seeds and have those seeds all come up. I mean, if you've ever grown a garden, and I suggest you start if you don't, they're not going to, okay, well, in 3 weeks we're going to have food to eat. No, they're not going to make it to the next growing season. They're not going to make it through winter. That's why your food stocks and your everything stocks is so important, no matter where you live. Now, the people in the suburbs are well prepared to survive pretty much anything until the big one, but they are not prepared for the big one. That's why they take their preparations. And this is what I explained about bugging out. Go back and watch that if you want a pretty much a step-by-step in detail of what my plan is. And then you got to get out, away from the populated areas, because they are your danger. Joe Fox over on Viking Preparedness, he said this, and he says it very well. He says, your two biggest threats are starvation and people behaving badly. I will add a couple of things to that, and I will include illness and bad water, things like that, and accidents, simple accidents. But all of those things. So that's the thing. I'm sorry that I can't give a better answer to the person who asked, what about if you can't bug out? Well, if it comes to a real grid down situation, your options are just not good. Your only option is to get away. That's why I wrote. If you want the ideal situation, that's why I wrote these. Where's the best place to be? How do you get there? How do you build it? How do you prepare it? How do you get ready for it? I think I'll do another one maybe later today. I'll jot it down maybe later because I have another one that I want to do on continuity of leadership in response to a question somebody gave me. But you have to get out there. You have to get out. And I think I started a thought and then I didn't finish it. This is why the person who has thought about it has to be the leader, because the people who have not thought about this will spend ad infinitum on questions. Well, why? Well, why this? Well, why this? Well, why not that? Well, why not this? You've already done the thinking. You got to go, because if you sit around and allow a committee or a meeting to determine this, y'all are gonna have big problems. Big problems. So, this might be something, if you have a group, that you need to discuss ahead of time. And let everybody ask their questions and then answer those questions. Explain to them, because it's going to be a shocker. For those people who haven't thought down the road enough, it's going to be a shocker for a lot of them, because they just haven't thought about it. They haven't thought about those people. Visualize your neighbors with their kids. They're starving and they're wanting food. And you say, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you any food. Or at the end, I don't have any left, and you look at your own kids because you've given away all your food and they're starving too. Those are the realities. And the person who survives, or the person who does well in anything in life, is the one who deals with realities, not with I hopes and I wishes and I wants. So I hope that that's answered some questions out there. If it happens, it's going to be horrible beyond what most people can imagine as horrible. You have to accept that. You have to see that, and you have to plan for it. Again, if you want the books that'll tell you everything that you need to know about all the internet, it's a great story. And it's not just me. It's people all around the world have loved this series. I say, because I love these messages that I get, and it's more than one, of people who have said they have read through the whole series 5 times or more, and they keep getting things out of it that they missed before. But this is the complete plan of how to prepare for, how to survive, and how to rebuild after a total collapse. Again, available on Amazon in paperback or Kindle. The link is down below, or directly from me, and you can get autographed copies by going to our website, stonemont.us. That link is also down below. And for the person who says you just want to sell your books, that's why I wrote them, to sell them. Because I want you all to have the information too. I enjoyed writing them, but I really did write them as a lesson plan, as a lesson, the complete lesson. You all have a good day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And think about this, how horrible things can be. The more you can imagine how horrible things can be, the faster and better you'll prepare. You all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.